At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast? Smart move. Being financially savvy? Smart move. Another smart move? Having State Farm help you create a competitive price when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the personal price plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
The Last Show with David Cooper, where we utilize non-linear reverse, inverse, backward thinking protocols. It sounds like this.
Your boss, maybe even your teachers, think AI is making you smarter and faster at your job, at doing your work, assuming you're not just plagiarizing. But a philosophy professor argues it might be doing the opposite, quietly hollowing out your skills, your judgment, even your creative independence. I'm here with Anastasia Berg, a philosophy professor at University of California, Irvine, and also an editor at The Point magazine to discuss just this. Anastasia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
At the most basic level, this thing, deskilling, what does it mean? Like, how is losing a skill different from simply, delegating tasks and retaining your skills?
Deskilling or skill atrophy means that if you don't use certain capacities, you become worse at them. So think about using a second language and the way in which it could even be your native language if you learned a second and then you kind of learn another one and you don't use that language, and how hard it is for you to go back to it. You can't find the words, you can hear your grammar's off, it's clunky, and you're uncomfortable performing those tasks. So this is a great example because of how basic it is. And this is just true of so many of the skills that are required to perform our work. And in fact, language isn't just an example. It's also the constitutive, and one of the most basic.
I like that word.
That's great. It's one of the most basic capacities that AI kind of alleviates the burden for us from using. So we are letting AI read for us and write for us, and we're not using our linguistic skills, which are our most basic cognitive skills. So we're not getting practice at dissecting difficult arguments or turns of phrase, analyzing it, and then trying to communicate effectively ourselves.
Now, I sort of look at this as two kind of categories of what can happen to us. I'm thinking of the movie WALL-E, where humanity is completely atrophied, not just our brains, but our bodies, and we're just sitting there, computers and robots are doing everything. But then I think about it in this other way that gives me a little more hope. Like, no one knows how to calculate a square root anymore. If I asked you for the square root of 7, you wouldn't go through this algorithm that you might have been taught in math class 80 years ago. You just use a calculator. No one would say a pure mathematician who's maybe published great papers, who can't calculate a square root by hand, was dumb or was atrophied. Is there a chance that using AI tools could kind of make us like the mathematician with the calculator versus the character in the movie WALL-E who just sits there brain dead?
So that's a great question. And there's a kind of argument that's being put forward to temper AI anxiety in education and in the workplace that goes exactly like that. Look at all the kind of technologies that humanity has introduced, and we seem to be doing okay. So our calculator is a classic example. GPS is another. We can think of many other ones. The question is always, is the benefit that the tool introduces worth the cost? Now, in the case of the introduction of AI, we're not talking about a specific skill among others. We are, just like I was saying a second ago, talking about the most basic cognitive linguistic skills. So we don't realize, because it is so ubiquitous, that our use of language underlies every cognitive function that we perform on a daily basis. So we take in the world in language. We try and persuade our colleagues and friends and family members and loved ones of anything that matters to us in language. We express ourselves and our feelings and work out what it is that we stand for in language. So we're not talking about a kind of one very isolatable capacity that we're offloading. We're talking about an atrophy of our most basic cognitive capacities. It's really clear when we talk to students. So students are not people who have this skill and then stand at the risk of it atrophying. It's people who are still acquiring that skill. And so you'll have students now for the first time graduating after having access to AI for the duration of their college careers. And they'll say, words don't make sense to me in the same way. And I can't really parse sentences anymore. And I am incredibly depressed. And that's because what's at stake is so fundamental. But I want to say one more thing, which is the thought is that the damage that's being done is just to ourselves. It's just, we don't have the skill anymore. But as you imagine in your first scenario, the world keeps running well. This isn't in fact the case. So for every skill that AI can quote unquote take over at a rudimentary level, there are still a higher function skills, capacities, tasks that we need people to be able to produce. And we already know that companies and corporations, including, and in fact, especially in tech, are incredibly worried about the fact that their incoming classes of employees can no longer perform those really basic tasks because they're not having the kind of prospects of a next generation of advanced developers. We see it in research across the university. So I, as a professor, I have graduate students, and when I see their capacity deteriorating, I am worried about who is it that's going to be coming into the ranks of the professoriate, right? Doing research at the highest level. So that utopian world where everything is done by computers, it still relies on people being experts in their field, something that the AI cannot replace. And that unfortunately requires us to have that fundamental both skill acquisition and skill maintenance that AI threatens.
So I put forth those two scenarios, the calculator one and the Wall-E one. I kind of presented it like I was on the calculator side, but I'm not. I actually am deeply worried. But I guess my question is, what can we do? Like, these tools aren't going away. They're going to be used by students. Students are going to be able to not get those high order functions learnt that they might have pre-AI, and they're going to graduate and they're going to enter academia and the workforce. It's not so much like warning about it as it is mitigating it. Do you have any suggestions for how to mitigate it?
Yeah, certainly. So I want you to imagine that I put you in front of a swimming pool and I tell you, get across the swimming pool. And then I say, you can either swim or you can use this motorized floaty. The only way this is a meaningful choice for you is if I actually ensure that you can swim. So if we want people to be able to use whatever technology it is in a free way where they choose to use it and they know when and how to use it, they actually have to have the original skills at a high level. So if we want our students to be able to use AI in a way that only benefits whatever the goal is that they have and their own cognitive development, they have to be, well, like us, like people who grew up without the technology. So we as educators, and then as employees, we can think about how to translate those insights. But we as educators have to give them ample opportunities and incentives to just work without AI. Now, that's not so hard. It requires some investment. But in tech-free space is not a kind of equipment-heavy, proposition. It's a room that you put students in and that you give them an incentive to spend time in, and you give them their books and you give them a way of writing down their thoughts. And I think that we need to be investing in that heavily, not just because we're Luddites, not just because we're worried about AI, but in order to create the kind of people who can then go into the workforce and keep using it in a way that doesn't harm them and doesn't harm the product.
Do you think universities will do that? I mean, it seems like it would take more resources than are already used in academia, and I worry it'll not happen.
So universities are putting in millions and millions of dollars to welcome AI, to make AI available to all students, to make it available to all instructors. The proposition, as I'm putting it forward, is to say, if you want them to use AI responsibly, it is and well and effectively, it's your responsibility to create those spaces. And as I said, it's just a room. It's not a new technology.
We do have rooms. You can read more in Anastasia Berg's opinion piece in the New York Times titled Why Even Basic AI Use is So Bad for Students. Anastasia, I've appreciated you being on the show. I've enjoyed the chat.
This was great. Thank you.
Anastasia is also a philosophy professor at the University of California, Irvine, and an editor at The Point magazine.
Doug. Here we have the Limu Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu? Is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.